There's a question that keeps coming up every single time someone tries to argue against Shedeur Sanders starting for the Cleveland Browns in 2026. It's not about whether he can read a defense. It's not about arm talent. It's not about football IQ or leadership or whether he belongs in an NFL huddle. Those conversations have mostly been settled by people who actually watch the tape. The question that keeps getting thrown into the room like a grenade every single time the momentum starts building is this: can his body hold up? Can a quarterback who only started taking NFL-level hits 1 year ago physically survive a full season? Can he absorb the contact, the wear, the punishment of playing deep into December behind an offensive line that wasn't exactly a wall of protection last year? That's the argument. That's always been the argument. And for a while, it was a fair one. Not because Shedeur Sanders lacks toughness. Anyone who watched him play through chaos in college and during his rookie season knows better than that. But because there's a difference between toughness and physical readiness, between the will to compete and the body armor that lets you compete at the highest level week after week without breaking down. Here's what's changed. New footage has emerged. Not rumors, not anonymous sources, not speculation dressed up as reporting. Actual video. And when you combine what that footage shows with the confirmation that just came out of one of Cleveland's most reliable insiders going on 92.3 The Fan, the durability argument doesn't just weaken, it collapses entirely. What we're about to break down isn't hype, it's documentation. And by the time you've seen the full picture, you'll understand why Todd Monken's decision, if he's being honest with himself and with the football, really isn't a decision at all. But there are layers to this, so stay with it, because the footage alone tells one story, and the insider confirmation tells another, and when you put them together, you get something that the media hasn't quite connected yet. Let's start with the criticism itself, because if you're going to understand why the recent footage matters so much, you have to understand what problem it was actually solving. When Shedeur Sanders came into Cleveland's building, the physical concerns were real, and they were specific. This wasn't vague skepticism from people who didn't want to give him a shot. The critique had substance. During his college career, even as he put up jaw-dropping numbers, he was doing it behind offensive lines that gave defenders a freeway to the quarterback. He took hits, a lot of them, more than any quarterback should absorb in a single season, let alone across multiple years. And the way he absorbed those hits raised a flag for people paying close attention, not because he went down easily, but because a quarterback taking that volume of contact needs a certain level of functional body strength to avoid cumulative damage, the kind of damage that doesn't show up in week 4, but absolutely shows up in week 14. His rookie NFL season didn't erase that concern, it actually added to it, because now he was dealing with NFL-caliber pass rushers instead of college defenders, and his physical profile at that point wasn't where it needed to be to handle that step up in quality. He was fighting for his life behind a line that wasn't giving him clean pockets, and while his football instincts were keeping him in plays, the question of whether his body could keep taking that punishment for a full 16-plus game stretch remained open. That's the context. That's what the footage needed to answer. And that's exactly what it does. The first clip that started making rounds shows Shedeur deep into an upper body training session. And when people say upper body work, you might picture a quarterback doing some light resistance exercises to stay loose during the offseason. That's not what this is. What the footage shows is structured, deliberate, high-intensity strength training, the kind of program you build with someone who has studied your specific physical weaknesses and designed a systematic response to them. You can see the difference immediately if you've been paying attention to what Shedeur looked like coming out of college and even through most of his rookie year. The physical profile in this footage is not the same person. The functional mass he's added, and the word functional matters here because this isn't about aesthetics, it's about building the kind of strength that lets a quarterback brace for contact, stay on his feet after a hit, and keep his mechanics intact when a defender gets through. It's visible, and it's significant. This isn't a player creating content, this isn't an off-season social media moment designed to generate buzz. The intensity in these clips is real. The structure of the training is real, and the outcomes are starting to become visible in a way that you simply cannot fake on camera. People who have been watching the Browns' quarterback situation closely didn't miss what those clips were communicating. This was a direct, physical response to the one valid criticism that had been following him since before he ever took an NFL snap. He heard the question. He didn't argue with it. He went and answered it in a weight room with a trainer and a program and months of daily work. But here's the thing about that first clip. As impactful as it is, it's actually the second piece of footage that carries more meaning. The ice bath clip. That's the one people need to sit with. At the professional level, hard training is basically the minimum entry fee. Every quarterback competing for a starting job works hard in the offseason. That's not the differentiator. The players who make it through a full NFL season, who are still sharp and still playing their best football when the games actually start to matter in November and December, are the ones who treat their recovery with the same seriousness they give to training. That's the real separator. Not who puts in the most reps, but who manages their body like a long-term investment rather than a short-term performance. The ice bath footage matters because it tells you something about the approach, not just the effort. It tells you that Shedeur Sanders is not grinding through off-season work and then hoping his body holds up. He is actively managing his physical condition with the kind of professional discipline that you typically have to be in the league for 4 or 5 years before you develop it naturally. He's doing it now, deliberately, as a second-year player. That's not a minor detail. That's a character trait showing itself on camera. Think about what that actually means for the durability question. The criticism was never really about whether Shedeur would try hard. Nobody questioned his effort. The question was whether he would hold up, whether his body would survive the grind. And the answer to that question isn't just found in how much weight he added or how much stronger he looks. It's found in whether he's treating his body like a professional athlete who intends to be on the field in Week 18. The ice bath says yes. The recovery protocol says yes. The combination of intense training load and equally serious recovery load says yes in a way that a press conference statement simply never could. He's not preparing for September, he's preparing for January. And that distinction matters enormously when you're Todd Monken trying to figure out which quarterback you can trust to still be playing his best football when the playoff picture is getting sorted out. Now pull back and look at the complete picture of what this off-season physical transformation actually represents, because the footage doesn't exist in isolation. According to people close to the situation, Shedeur Sanders came into this offseason with a specific mission. He worked with a dedicated trainer every single day. The program wasn't generic, it was built around what his first NFL season revealed about his body, the specific areas where he needed more functional strength, the specific vulnerabilities that the game exposed. That level of intentionality in an off-season program is not common among second-year players. Most young quarterbacks are still adjusting to the speed of the professional game, still trying to absorb playbooks and scheme. Shedeur was doing that and simultaneously rebuilding his physical foundation in a targeted, methodical way. The result is a player whose physical profile, according to the footage now publicly available, looks meaningfully different from the one that entered Cleveland's facility the prior year. Not slightly updated, actually genuinely transformed in the areas that matter for quarterback durability at the NFL level: the functional strength, the body armor, the physical presence that tells you this person is ready to take hits and stay upright and keep executing when the game gets physical. That's his answer to the durability question. Not words, not promises, video evidence of a complete off-season physical rebuild specifically designed to address the one legitimate concern his critics had raised. And here's where it gets even more interesting, because this physical transformation doesn't exist in a vacuum either. It's part of a pattern. There's something about how Shedeur Sanders handles criticism that doesn't get enough attention. The pattern is consistent enough that it deserves to be named. Every single time a legitimate question has been raised about his game or his readiness or his profile, he has responded to it directly and on camera, without turning the response into a media moment or a quote machine. When people questioned his interview style, the way he presents himself publicly, he didn't argue that the criticism was unfair. He let his actual interactions speak. The visits with sick children, the time invested in his community. the way he treats the people around him. He didn't schedule a press conference to defend himself, he just kept showing up, and the footage of who he actually is in those moments did the talking. When pocket mechanics became a discussion point, and it was a real discussion because raw athletic talent at quarterback doesn't automatically translate to the kind of quick, efficient decision-making that NFL offenses require, he went to work with Todd Monken during the offseason. And according to reporters who cover this team closely and who have been watching the spring sessions, the improvement is not marginal. The words being used are significantly better. Decision-making that is faster and more decisive, getting to the right read more quickly, understanding where the ball needs to go before the pressure arrives. That's not a small jump. That's a quarterback who took a specific criticism and built a response to it in real time. Physical toughness questioned. He added strength and documented the recovery discipline without making it a publicity stunt. Interview style questioned. He let his character speak through his actions. Pocket mechanics questioned. He worked with his head coach and came back demonstrably better. Every query answered, in video, not at a podium, on camera, in the practice field, in the weight room, in the moments that actually reveal who a person is and what they're made of. That pattern matters because it tells you something about how this player is going to respond when things get hard during the season. When it's third quarter in a tough road game and the offense is stalled and the defense is getting after him. You want to know what a quarterback does under pressure? Look at what he did when people were questioning him in the offseason. Shedeur Sanders answered every single question, and he answered it the right way. Now here's where the insider confirmation comes in, because what Lance Reisner said on 92.3 The Fan recently is the piece that ties everything together. Reisner isn't a national commentator speculating about a team he watches from the outside. He covers the Browns from the inside. He has access to what's actually happening in Berea. He knows the difference between off-season content that's designed to generate positive headlines and actual preparation that signals a player is on a different level than he was before. When someone like that goes on air, specifically to discuss a player's training, their recovery discipline, and the overall arc of their physical preparation, it means something real. You don't spend that kind of airtime tracking a backup. You don't dedicate a radio segment to a player's ice bath footage and upper body training program if the people inside that building aren't paying genuine, serious attention to that player. What Reisner's presence in this conversation tells you is that within Cleveland's organization, Shedeur Sanders is not being treated as a project or a depth chart afterthought. He's being watched. He's being talked about. The people who matter in that building are genuinely engaged with what he's doing and what he's becoming. His remarks about footwork are worth sitting with too, because they're not just a technical football observation. When Reisner explains that footwork at the quarterback position is really about whether you understand what you're seeing from a defense, that when the feet match the eyes, it means the quarterback knows his progressions based on coverage and can get to his checkdown. He's making a specific point about Shedeur's development that goes beyond physical conditioning. He's saying that the mental game is catching up to the physical work, that the football IQ, which was always there, is now being expressed through the body in real time. Feet that move before the pressure arrives because the quarterback already knows where the ball is going. That's the jump from promising to dangerous, and Reisner went on air and put that in the context of Shedeur's current trajectory. That's not a coincidence, that's a signal.
So let's lay out the actual comparison, because Todd Monken is going to have to make a decision. And when you strip away the contract talk and the front office politics and the media noise about keeping the competition open, there is one clear football question sitting at the center of all of this. On one side, you have Shedeur Sanders, 23 years old, rookie contract, made the Pro Bowl in his first year of meaningful NFL action, came back this offseason and physically rebuilt his body in a targeted, documented, professional-grade program, has been confirmed by the reporter who covers him most closely to have made significant improvements in his pre-snap decision-making through spring ball, has voluntarily spent more time in that facility than anyone else on the depth chart, recovers like a professional, prepares like a professional, competes like a professional, and answers every criticism thrown at him, not with words, but with footage. On the other side, you have a 30-year-old quarterback on an expiring contract who missed the entire previous season due to injury, a player whose arm consistency was flagged publicly, not by anonymous critics online, but by a credible, reputable reporter during OTA sessions, a player whose best football, by any honest assessment, is known to be behind him rather than ahead of him. If you look at that comparison as a football evaluation and nothing else, no sentiment, no organizational history, no concern about how the locker room reacts or what the fan base expects, there is one answer. One. Shedeur Sanders gives this team the best chance to win games in 2026 and the best chance to build something sustainable beyond this season. The durability concern, which was the last remaining football argument against starting him, has been answered on camera. The physical transformation is documented. The insider confirmation is on record. The pre-snap improvement is on record. The professional recovery discipline is on record. There is nothing left to hide behind if your goal is to make the right football decision. The real question now isn't whether Shedeur Sanders should start. That answer is already visible to anyone paying attention. The real question is whether the people making the decision will let the football answer win, or whether they'll keep finding reasons to delay the inevitable. Because here's the thing about quarterback competitions that get drawn out past the point where the evidence is clear. They stop being about football, they start being about optics, about not wanting to be seen as having made a mistake by not committing sooner, about protecting organizational decisions that were made before the evidence shifted, about the very human tendency to keep a competition alive, even when the outcome has already been determined by everything that's actually happened. Todd Monken has seen the footage. He was in those spring ball sessions, where according to Reisland and others covering the team, Shedeur's decision-making looked significantly sharper than it did when the year began. He has the insider perspective that Reisland was referencing on the radio. He knows what the physical transformation looks like up close. He knows what the recovery discipline signals about a player's professionalism and long-term durability. He has every piece of information he needs to make the call. The remaining variable is whether training camp, once Shedeur gets a sustained run of live reps behind a rebuilt offensive line with a full offseason of the Monken system in his body, forces the decision to be made openly rather than quietly. And if you've been watching how this offseason is unfolded, the footage, the insider commentary, the clear trajectory of improvement across every area that was previously questioned, there's very little reason to believe the competition stays close once the pads come on and the live reps begin.
This is what the video is telling you. The training footage isn't just content, it's a preview. It's Shedeur Sanders in the most direct way available to him, showing exactly what he has done with the questions people raised, and exactly what kind of quarterback he is becoming in real time. Not the player who entered Cleveland's building last year. A rebuilt, recovered, sharper, stronger version of a player who is already good enough to make the Pro Bowl in his first real shot at meaningful NFL action. The preview is the video. The main event is training camp. And if the preview is this convincing, the main event shouldn't take long to wrap up. Here's where things stand heading into camp. The durability question, the last credible football argument against starting Shedeur Sanders, has been answered. Not with promises, not with media spin, with structured training footage, documented recovery discipline, confirmed physical transformation, and a reliable insider going on record about what the people inside Cleveland's building are actually seeing and saying about this player. The pattern of how he handles criticism tells you what kind of competitor he is. Every question answered in action. Every doubt addressed through footage, not press conferences. That's not a player who is hoping things work out. That's a player who is building the case himself, one documented response at a time. Monken has what he needs. The front office has what they need. The football answer is sitting right there in the open, backed by the kind of evidence you rarely get this clearly in an off-season quarterback competition. What happens next depends on whether the decision-making process in Cleveland follows the football or keeps looking for reasons to slow-walk a conclusion that the evidence is already delivered.
The moment Shedeur Sanders gets his first extended run of live reps in training camp with that offensive line and that system fully loaded, this conversation changes permanently. Not because something new will have been discovered, but because the live setting will make visible what the off-season footage and the insider confirmation have already been saying for weeks. The case isn't building anymore. The case is closed.